The U.S. Senate has voted overwhelmingly 98-1 to approve an amendment that affirms that climate change is real and not a hoax. And this was an amendment to legislation that aims to force the approval of the Keystone XL pipeline, which would, as I'm sure you've heard either from me or from others, would carry oil from the Canadian oil sands into the United States. Senators opposed to the pipeline, who say it would simply accelerate climate change, not create jobs, be bad for the environment, are using votes on the bill as an opportunity to sort of force Republican senators into admitting that climate change is not a hoax. I actually am not as thrilled with this as some of our audience is. I received so many emails, Lewis, from people in our audience saying, David, we have Republicans on record saying that climate change is not a hoax. But when you read into the Republican comments around this amendment, you will see that this may actually backfire in this particular sense. We talked to you about how 72% of Senate Republicans are climate deniers. Now that we have this on record, when we go to these Republican senators and ask them to explain their positions, they'll say, hey, I voted for that amendment. I admit, I agree that climate change is not a hoax. I simply refuse to acknowledge that humans have anything at all to do with the climate changing. And that's exactly what we heard from Senator James Inhofe, who was one of the last senators to vote in favor. He said, yes, indeed, the climate is changing and it has always changed, period. No reference whatsoever to why it is changing. And this might actually become a kind of tool that Republicans can grasp onto in defending their anti-science positions.
I'm increasingly thinking that that's what this is. I mean, we're talking about a Republican-controlled Senate here, and I mean, there was one vote against this. So they're basically all in agreement, and I just can't help but think that there's something shady going on.
Of course, this will be used as a pretense for Republicans to say, we are all on the side of science. We all agree that the climate is changing. However, we have no evidence, they will say, that humans have anything to do with those changes, and thus adding regulations, quote, hurting business is not warranted and it's a bad idea. I think this creates actually a pretext that could really backfire on those who are really working very hard to reduce carbon emissions, curb pollution, and work on the climate change issue. But we will see. I would actually love to be wrong about this, but I don't know which way this will ultimately go. Make sure to give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Next, what happens when we have a good guy with a gun and someone who sees that good guy with a gun and doesn't know whether it's a good guy with a gun or not? That's after the break.